Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. This is Sam Overton. This is day 7, part 2. On the weekends, I'll probably record a little bit more. So it is still day 7, but I'm just going to keep going through as many lessons as I can. And the reason why I'm breaking them up though is because having long videos on YouTube, people just don't tend to consume that content. So I'm just making the content more consumable for everyone and the viewers. So thank you for joining me. We will still continue to do a 15-minute Pomodoro. I'm just leaving off where I left off last time. Let's go and let's get this started. So let me start my Pomodoro right there, and then all right, I finished this one last time. So now let's go to it says the lesson is return a value from a function with return. So we can pass values into a function with arguments. So we have an argument right here, and you can use a return statement to send a value back out of a function. Have a return statement right here, and then so when you pass the value, the return will give you the result of whatever is in this function. So let's look at the example right here. We have a function, it's called +3. It's passing a argument called num. It's returning the num +3. So when we invoke this function with a 5, this num becomes 5, and then it's +3, which equals 8. So it says +3 takes an argument for num and returns a value equal to num +3, and that's what we basically just stated before. So it says create a function times 5 that accepts one argument, multiplies it by 5, and returns the new value. Okay, so it says only change code below this line. Okay, so we're going to create a function. So we have function, and then we're going to call it times 5. And then we have the argument, we will just call it num as well. And we will, it says it takes one argument. We already passed the argument. And it says multiply it by 5. So we want to return num times 5. So if we were to console log we're going to console log this. We're going to console log times 5. And then we're going to pass it the value 5 in there. And I tried to save it. I don't know. That shouldn't help. But so if we run this, command enter, we get 25. We should get 25. For some reason, sometimes the console doesn't always work right here, but it popped up 25 just to show you that 5 times 5 is 25. It returned the actual value that we passed in here, and this is simple like how you would actually utilize a function. It would be a little bit more complex when you're passing values from other functions and or objects or different things like that, and we'll get into that. We'll dive deeper into that when that time comes. But just this, you can pass a value and you can return that value, and which or you can pass the value, you can pass a value, and you can manipulate that value and then return it, which is what makes programming or programming with functions so powerful. It's because you can manipulate something and then return it to make it something else that you would need. So we're going to get Command Enter. We're going to keep blazing through these lessons. So it says understand undefined value returned from a function. So understanding undefined value returned from a function. So a function can include the return statement, but it does not have to. In the case that the function does not have a return statement, when you call it, the function processes the inner code, but the return value is undefined. So here's an example. We have a variable sum equals named sum, and it equals 0. And it's in the global scope. So then we have a function, it's called add sum, and it has a argument which the name is num. So it says sum, which is 0. So 0 equals, no, I'm sorry. So so right here we are, sorry. Right here we are calling, we're trying to assign a new value to this sum variable. So right now it's 0, but right here we're assigning it a new value. So this sum equals 0 plus the num. So the return value, so if we were to return, the return value of add sum would be return value is undefined. But we would still get, this function still would have some information in it. Still would have what sum is. It'll still calculate that, but the return value will be undefined. And the reason is because we're not returning anything from this function. The function is just doing something, and right here it's assigning a value to this variable. So right here we have add sum is a function without a return statement. The function will change the global sum variable, but the return value of the function is undefined. Create a function, add 5 without any arguments. This function adds 5 to the sum variable, but its return value is undefined. So we need to create a function. So function add 5, and then I'll just call this variable num, and it says this function adds 5 to the sum variable. So we have sum, which equals what do you say? Sum plus 5. I don't. Oh, it says without any arguments. All right, because that wouldn't have made sense. So we have a function right here. It's called add 5. We don't have any arguments. We want sum to equal sum plus 5. Right now the sum is 0. But here, when this is calculated, sum will equal 5, but the return value from this function will be undefined. So if we hit Command Enter, we complete the lesson. But the just to understand what I want for us to understand is this add function is still doing something. It's still making this sum value a 5. So the sum, this variable now changes to 5. Like this variable, this sum is now 5 because we changed it here. The only thing is the function isn't returning anything. So this function isn't returning anything. It's just doing some calculations, which in the future we would definitely use. It's hard to see the use case now. You think you always want to return something, but sometimes you don't need to return something. You just need to do some calculations, or to just want this function to figure out something to be used in a variable later or something like that. So I hope that makes sense. If not, leave a comment and we can chat about that. So I'm going to hit Command Enter to go through. Command Enter again. So it says assignment with a return value. If you recall from our discussions of storing values with the assignment operator, everything to the right of the equal sign is resolved before the value is assigned. Let's say that again. Everything to the right of the equal sign, right here, to the right of the equal sign, is resolved before the value is assigned. This means we can take the return value of a function and assign it to a variable. Assume we have predefined a function sum which adds two numbers together. Then our sum equals sum, which has two values. We'll call the sum function, which returns a value of 17 and assigns it to our sum variable. This is getting pretty deep. So I clicked out of it. We don't need to use that. So let's explain what's going on right here. It says everything to the right of the equal sign is resolved before the value is assigned. So everything here is resolved before the value is assigned to it. So this means we can take the return value of a function. So we can take this return value of the function and assign it to a variable. So say for instance right here, well, let's go over an example. Let's do this because it'll make more sense once we go over it. I think I explained something just a tad bit wrong. So we have something that needs to be processed on this right side. It will be processed. So if we're calling a function over here and this function has a value that we need, it'll do that and then assign it to the variable. It will do that. So then we have that value and that will be assigned to the variable. I don't think I made that clear last trying to explain it before. So now let's go through these. Let's go through an example. So we have call the process arg function with the argument 7 and assign its return value to the variable processed. So it has this set up. So we have a variable named processed and it equals 0. And we have this process arg, which is a function. It has an argument num, and it's returning num plus 3 divided by 5. So what we want to do is we want to, it says call the process function with the argument 7 and assign its return value to the variable process. So right now we have the variable process right here. We see that. So then we want to make it equal to process arg, and we want to give it the argument that it needs. So the argument is 5. So now we have process arg. We passed the value 5. My time is up, but we're going to finish this off. So we have process arg. We passed a value, or we passed an argument number 5. Passed the argument 5. Here is going to do 5 plus 3, and then is going to divide that by 5. And so instead of us putting all of this information, hard coding it right here, what we're doing is we're just letting this function do the hard work. It's doing the calculations, it's doing everything that we needed to do, and then we're just giving it that value right here. So whatever this value will be, like say for instance we have something in here that randomly generates numbers for us. No matter what, it will assign it that value that will be processed here, which can be really powerful, and it's really powerful in programming to be able to assign a function that can do whatever we need it to do and assign that value, whatever the value that comes from that function, to this variable. And now we can just use this variable wherever, and we know process will equal whatever process arg is calculating. So let me hit Command Enter. So did something wrong, huh? It says only change code below this line. So we gave it the wrong value here. It's supposed to be 7. Command Enter. There we go. So we are done. 15 minutes is up. I went a little bit over my time, but I hope everyone understands what we was just doing. A lot of these things we are doing right now is going to come up definitely when you get deeper into programming, deeper into using JavaScript. It's going to come up a lot, and sometimes it'll look confusing because it's a lot more things going on. But just when you break it down to its simplistic state, you'll understand that, oh, it's just returning a value and we're just using it here. And so if anybody has any questions or concerns, feel free to really just leave a comment just leave a comment, and I'll try and get back to you as soon as possible. We'll try and go through more examples or whatever, just so you can get a better understanding. But I hope it was clear here. And you can also go through this lesson on Free Code Camp as well, and just go through it a little bit. Change up the numbers, change up the values, and break it. Make a mistake, and you will definitely learn from that. And I'm done with this part 2 video. Part 2 video. There will be a part 3 and a part 4, so stay tuned for that as well. But I just want everyone to I just want you to love your family, love your friends, and love yourself definitely. I want to say peace.